first moment of learning consultative selling, understanding the structure. Every conversation, there will be a framework to the conversation. Because when you're in a sales environment, you must control the conversation. You have to understand the framework of how a conversation should go so it can flow naturally.
You want to accomplish it, you need to be crystal clear on what your mission is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? One of the things that's also stuck to me, but it's like living your life by design. A lot of us don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. The reason we fail to plan is because we're not clear on the end result.
Welcome back. Obviously the first one was crazy value. You're like, yo, this is crazy. This is my first time hearing Andrew. I'm in the military, and I thought about obviously opening up a business before. I'm learning all these systems, and I never thought about, you know what, waking up and doing all these daily activities are actually going to lead me to somewhere that I never even think I could implement somewhere else. And I know you talked about, you made a good comparison of a Fortune 500 company having systems and operations that very similar to the military. And then you talk about sales and operations being in every business. What are some examples and some scenarios that you could bring light in terms of like, these are similar in terms of military and Fortune 500 companies, for example, sales, recruiting, things like that?
Yeah, you know, one thing that I thought was really interesting is in the private sector, when someone becomes a salesperson or they take on a sales role, there's no formal training. Like you have to show up and be turnkey, or have a basic foundation and have a track record of proven performance. And where it's different, and I guess that's where experience plays a role. And if you don't have any work experience, then your level of value to an employer is less, and you're less marketable when being compared to other people in sales, right?
Right.
But where the Marine Corps is different is when a Marine goes into the recruiting environment, they are then sent to recruiter school. And recruiter school is about 2 months in total, or like about 8 weeks. But the sales package that's being taught is about 5 days. And that's essentially the foundation for all recruiters across the nation, for the Marine Corps at least. And we get taught consultative selling. And from the first moment of learning consultative selling, understanding the structure, right? So every conversation, there will be a framework to the conversation. Because when you're in a sales environment, you must control the conversation. So similar to, I always relate it to like snowboarding, right? If you've ever been snowboarding or skiing or driving a car, you either control the vehicle. So you're either controlling the bus or the bus is controlling you. You're either controlling the snowboard or the snowboard is controlling you. And if for anyone that's ever been snowboarding, when you first start out, the snowboard is controlling you. Like you don't, because you don't know what to do. And it's all bad. Like when you're not in control of what you're driving, it's never good. It's a disaster. And in the sales environment, a disaster means non-conversion, no close, and which is not the desired result.
Dying.
So in order to have the desired result or increase the probability of having the desired result, you have to be in control of the conversation. And in order to remain in control of the conversation, you have to understand the framework of how a conversation should go so it can flow naturally. And that was the basic foundation that was taught in the Marine Corps. But when I understood that it brought value from a private sector standpoint, is that the sales process when selling toilet paper and chemicals is exactly the same. And then as I progressed in my entrepreneurial journey, when selling a photo booth service, the process is very similar. Where it's different is that's more inbound sales versus outbound sales.
Talk about that difference for someone that maybe doesn't understand inbound versus outbound sales.
Yeah, so I would say guys who knock on your door to sell solar or pest control or whatever, those guys or girls are going out looking for people that may have interest, or they're going out to generate interest. Inbound would be more of like a retail employee who is at a store, and they facilitate the experience for the customer coming in to buy something. So they already have the people that they speak to, inbound. There's already a level of interest, and the conversation is naturally more simple to have because they're interested in what you have. So they came to you. So now you just facilitate the conversation.
So because I really like this. I'm very interested about learning recruiting school, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't care who you probably are, whether you're in sales or not, you're recruiting. Maybe you're dating, you're recruiting your man or your woman, right? Like you're trying to recruit, right? You got to sell yourself essentially, right?
Yeah.
So how when you have now a client that's coming in for somebody that's in sales, they're coming to you for your service, right? But in the recruiting world, you're outbound. Do I get that right?
Yeah. It's like outside sales.
It's outside sales, right? So now, like, do you what's that process there for you where you now, what is that framework? How do you transition them into an inbound now? Like, what is that process there for you now? Because now you go out, maybe you're going out to a high school to talk to a bunch of, seniors that aren't going to go to college and now they're going to join the Marine Corps. You're going out, but now they're coming in. So what does that transition kind of look like?
Yeah, I would say at its core, first you must engage in conversation in some shape or form, right? So if you're outside sales, you must initiate the conversation. They're not going to initiate the conversation with you. So you have to engage in conversation and then have I would say, methodology or an idea of what you're going to say that will invite a response or reply. So for a recruiter, it's like, hey man, what's up? Are you a high school, or are you in 12th grade? Are you a senior, or are you like a freshman? Whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I'm a senior. And so from there, now you've engaged in the conversation. And if you don't, now it's, what's the next question? What's the sequence of events? And what is the purpose of your conversation in order to then generate interest? And once you're able to then generate interest by uncovering a pain point, then you present yourself as the person who has the solution to their pain point. And you're more than happy to show them the solution by setting up an appointment, and then you get the name and number for a later follow-up, or you can set the appointment while they're right in front of you.
On the framework, if you wouldn't mind, just because I think this is common for everybody, like you're saying, the world of sales. In the beginning, when you're figuring out the pain point, what are some examples of open-ended or thought-provoking questions that could lead someone to realize, yeah, you know what, I actually do have pain here, or to open up about their pain?
Yeah, so the framework, and that's a really good question too. The framework for whether it's finance stuff or a high school senior looking at what they're going to do post high school, everyone feels like they have some plan in place. In reality, the plan isn't as solid or as airtight as they feel like it is. But they have an idea. And I would say with the high school senior, they know that their next step is high school graduation and what they want to do when they grow up. So what that looks like is they know that where they're at and where they want to go. So the way, if I were to like write it on a board, it's like they know point A, and they know point D. So there's A, B, C, and D. They're at point A. They want to get to point D. They have a general idea of what point B is and then what point C is. Where the pain points lie, the pain points lie in the transitional movements between A and B, B and C, C and D. Mm. Those are the areas of opportunity that most people have not mapped out.
That's good.
And those are where the vulnerabilities will lie. And in an example with a high school senior, it's like if I were to just map it out for a high school senior, it's like point A is senior year, point B is college. Let's just call it point B, junior college, C, the 4-year, D, their dream job. And so for someone who knows that they're going to go to a junior college, they're like, oh, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to Mount SAC. And from Mount SAC, I'm going to go to Cal State Fullerton. And then I'm going to graduate. And then bam, I'm going to get my dream job. And so through having conversation and dialogue, you then ask questions on, well, why are you going to a 2-year instead of a 4-year? And from there, it's like, because my grades suck. And I couldn't go, why were your grades poor? Like, why was that? I never did my homework, or I sucked at tests. What's going to change in that new environment where people care less about what you do versus where you're at right now? Do you anticipate that you'll be better? Yeah, I'll change. I'm like, and it's like, but what if you don't? What happens if you don't change? And it's like, right?
Yeah. The aha comes out.
And then from there, and it's like, so these questions, they're not necessarily like, they don't all have to be like, what if, worst case scenario. You could also play it as best case scenario. It's like, okay, let's just say you have an epiphany and life changes and you're all of a sudden a solid student, even though no one's holding you more accountable than you are right now. Then you would then transition into a 4-year. If you had good grades, would you be going into a 4-year now? No, I can't afford it. What's going to change between now and whenever, FAFSA or financial aid or this and that? Or what if that doesn't cover it? Or let's just say, okay, cool, that covers that. Then you'll be there for another 2 years. From there, then what? Oh, then I'll get my job. And from there, it's like, do you know there's a statistic that adults will go through like six jobs before they are able to land the job that they actually wanted? And it's like these questions that provoke thought and make them less certain in what they want to do is what then provides the opportunity for the salesperson. And so in a positive light, right, if I were to say, okay, so junior college, then 4-year, if you do the best that you can in a junior college, taking 12 units per semester, it's 60 units in order to transition or transfer into a 4-year, right? So unless you're going to go to summer school, you're going to be there for at least 5 semesters. If everything goes well, you're able to get into all the classes that you need and there's no hiccups and all of the classes transfer over. So let's call it 2.5 years. You transfer, you continue to be dialed in, another 2.5 years. So 5 years, you'll graduate college. And then let's just say, would you agree that it takes 3 jobs to get to your dream job? And they say yes. And then let's just say that for every job, they at least stay 12 months. So then 3 years. So now we're talking about 8 years from right now to get into the dream job. And let's just say it was aviation engineering. I want to work on airplanes. And so from there, having an understanding of what it is that they want, some tentative issues that may come across the way. But in a perfect scenario from today, it will take about 8 years to get to that dream job. And so from there, I would then say, as the recruiter, if I could show you a way to where you can get into your dream job in substantially less time and pay no money, would that interest you? Typically, the answer would be yes. And then at that point, it's, all right, well, let me just get your name and number. I'll give you a call either today or tomorrow. I'll ask you some basic screening questions to see if you're qualified for any of our options or programs. And if you are, I'll set an appointment with you. How's that sound? All right.
Bro,
That's it.
I feel like about your head is probably spinning because you love sales and I love sales too.
Yeah.
And I want to point out a couple of things because I know you probably saw a couple of things that we want to point out. One of the things is I like the questions you had. You said, would you be interested if I were to show you this? It's more like yes or no questions. You're not giving them like in a way out. It's like yes or no. I also love the fact that you're storytelling. But I know Pablo could probably chime in too because I know he likes.
Yeah.
Probably fascinated.
Yeah. No, I love, bro. Like I continue to just, the clarity in the message is what I want to acknowledge. It's just so, it's laid out, right? And clarity, like I remember us having a workout one time a couple of years ago, and it's something that Sam used to tell me all the time. Is like, you want to accomplish something, you need to be crystal clear on what your mission is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish, right? One of the things that's also stuck to me, which we'll get into in another segment, but it's like living your life by design. Yeah. We could even break that down a little bit more and like planning your business by design, right? How we started the last segment, prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And the one thing that stands out to me here is like entrepreneurs, a lot of us, I'm guilty myself at some point, is a lot of us don't plan to fail, we fail to plan, right? And the reason we fail to plan is because we're not clear on the end result, right? So like having those systems and processes, whether you're trying to grow a big business or whether you're a sales rep selling real estate, solar, insurance, whatever it is that you're selling, like what is the systems that you have in place, right? For us, we have a 5-step sales system that, you know, we have a new agent come on, we go through the onboarding, whatever the case may be. There's systems and processes there. You know, in our 5-step sales system is prospecting, number one, right? How are you going to prospect, right? Then you make contact with the prospect. You set the appointment, you share the options, and then you ultimately lead to the close, right? So it's like, if you don't have some sort of a sales system or some type of a system in your business, I think that's something that's very big. So you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur and you're like, you know what Andrew just laid out for me, even identifying how to move from A to D and the pain points in between, uncovering those things. I know Armando probably loved that one. That was a really good question, bro. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this actually brought a lot of value to me. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs in my circle that I could also send this to. So I want to encourage you guys to send this episode to 5 different people in the sales world, entrepreneurs that could find value from this. Also drop down in the comments below, what did you take away from this little segment inside of sales and processes and marketing and stuff like that? Well, we'll get into the marketing stuff in the next segment, but again, share it with somebody, subscribe, like the video, and we will see you guys on the next segment.